you went under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we do the long-awaited promised episode where we talk about CODA.
2021 Academy Award for Best Picture, CODA.
Yes.
The best picture.
The best
the year.
movie made in 2021.
Also included on the top 10 movies of 2021 by the American Film Institute.
This one goes out to my friend Mario because he kept bugging me about it.
The institution that gave us David Lynch and Ari Aster, among others, has named CODA one of the best movies of 2021.
It's like I kind of get why it won, but I'm also still baffled by it.
I don't get why it won. It is a television movie. It is a Disney Channel movie.
I always forget. Did you see Green Book?
No.
Okay, so we can't use that comparison. All right, so Gabe, do you even remember what happened in it to give a synopsis, or should I try and cobble together something?
Okay, I'll try, and then you can point out if I missed something or if I'm mistaken about something.
Okay.
CODA stands for Children of Deaf Adults. It is about a girl from Massachusetts, which you can tell because everyone around her is really annoying, who lives in a fishing village, and her parents are deaf, and her parents fish, and they're like, Ruby, the girl's name's Ruby. It's like, Ruby, you gotta fish with us. Fishing is your life, kid. We're all about the fish, but they don't say it. They sign it because they're deaf.
Right. Yes, Gabe. Thank you for that clarification.
And then she goes to school with kids who can hear and is like an outsider because her parents are deaf. And I guess that's like, there's like, I don't know why. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, she's an outsider because her parents are deaf at the high school. And all she wants to do is sing. She loves to sing, which her parents don't get because they're deaf and they can't hear. And music is like alien to them. Except stuff with really loud bass. They like that. So yeah, she's torn between her dream of singing and her parents who are like, come on, Will Hunting, you got to stay here and fish with us.
Will Hunting was an orphan. Anyway.
What? Same thing. Casey Affleck says, Will Hunting, you got to fish with us.
Ben Affleck is just like, come on, Will. You got to go hunting with us.
Zac Efron, I want you to play basketball, not sing. So yeah, it's just the whole movie is just her being torn between singing, which she loves, and trying to support her family, who like has parentified her because she's the only one who can hear. So she acts as their interpreter in when it comes to like selling fish and dealing with regulators and things like that. Because that dang old EPA and their red tape gets in the way of fishing. Good old fish. So yeah, she kind of resents them for like putting her in that position where she's like has way too much responsibility than like a child should really have in a family unit. And her parents are also like kind of childish as well.
They like to fuck.
Anyway. And then at school she has this the Mexican dude from Dora and the Lost City of Gold is her music teacher. And he's like, hey, in my ridiculous accent, I went to Berklee College of Music, which was really great, and music is awesome, and I'm passionate about it. You seem passionate about music, too. You could have a future in this. You should apply to Berklee College of Music. And, Ruby's like, oh, I don't know. my family might not like it if I went to college and stopped fishing for them. And, but then, like, the guy she has a crush on is also in her singing class, and he's like, hey, I'm going to Berklee College of Music, too. You should go with me. Go Tom Brady. And
Go Pats!
Go Pats! Go, come on, Big Papi, go Red Sox. So then, yeah. It's a High School Musical. It's High School Musical, but instead of basketball, it's fishing for deaf people. That's it. That's the movie.
So what did you think of CODA? What do you
I
give
thought
it?
it sucked. I hated it.
Dude, Gabe, why do you hate deaf people?
Honestly, the deaf people are like the most interesting thing in the movie.
Well, no shit. Why do you think it won?
Yeah,
why do you think it won?
The only reason this movie's at all interesting is because it's like, oh, this is a slice of life you don't get to see very often.
So, like, you know what? Because,
and by slice of life you don't get to see very often, I mean people from Massachusetts.
No way. We see people from Massachusetts way too much. I'm
kidding.
I was watching this, I was like, my God, this reminds me of Manchester by the Sea, but it's shot and composed in a more Hollywood way.
Matt Damon and the Affleck brothers have like oversaturated. And Mark Wahlberg have oversaturated the film market with Massachusetts.
It was like, hey, did you like and freaking William Monahan with his freaking, I'm going to take Infernal Affairs and put it in Boston. Like, why? So Jack Nicholson can say the N-word? Is that why?
Yep.
And call Chinese people by derogatory name? Because he's a bad guy if he uses slurs. Anyway.
How do we know we're in Boston? Here's a bunch of slurs. Oh, there we
are. And they're the only people who can say Worcester sauce correctly.
Worcestershire sauce?
Worcester sauce.
Worcester sauce.
Gloucester. Manchester. That's Manchester. But anyway,
it's like the deaf people slice of life stuff where it's like
I will be.
That is actually kind of interesting. The whole rest of the movie stinks to high heaven.
I will be more generous than you by actually giving it a rating. I'll say it's like I'll give it a solid witness.
I'll give it a low. It's fine.
That's fine. I think like it's weird because I like you're right. The story is cliche, and it actually leads into my first question. I do agree that the most interesting thing was the deaf community aspects of it, and I do think it's also elevated by a couple of things. Although one of them I kind of like roll my eyes at. One of them is like, okay. I'm not quite sure where to start because one of the things I really liked about the movie was the fact that the thing that she likes to do is something that her parents wouldn't appreciate her for it, which becomes kind of like one of the recurring elements of the movie. And I'm like, okay, well that's good. You set up the contrast well. But again, it's baffling to me how it won adapted screenplay in a way because it is so by the numbers. It's not like Manchester by the Sea where it's like got kind of an interesting, like indie feel or cut pattern, but it does remind me a lot of The Way Back, which is a very by the numbers kind of movie. And I like The Way Back, and I thought this was, fine for kind of telling a cliche story, but in an interesting way. However, did you know that this movie is an adaptation of a French movie?
Yep.
I did not know that. I thought that Sian Heder, is that how you say her name? Cyan, the director of the movie. Do I still have you there, Gabe?
Yeah, I don't know how you say her name.
I thought that she was part of the deaf community, and she was like, oh, this is kind of like, a slice of life story of like me growing up, and I have a connection to it. Finding out that it's just like
my parents were deaf, and I also love High School Musical. Let me combine them. No, it's an adaptation of a French movie. It's like the Birdcage if the Birdcage was terrible.
Or it's like that one movie with Bryan Cranston and what's his short dude?
Oh yeah, it's like The Upside if
Yeah. Like I watched The Upside and I was like, what? This isn't that bad. This isn't that terrible. Oh, it's an adaptation of a French movie with Omar Sy or whatever in it.
It's the movie it's based on is actually really good.
Yeah, they just move it from which movie? The Upside?
The Upside, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I should watch it because it's funny. I do kind of like adaptations because it's interesting to see what was changed and what was lost in adapting it. So
everything interesting is usually lost, and then what's changed is it gets like squeezed into that like Hollywood paint by numbers 3-act structure where like all the beats are laid out page by page.
Sometimes, yeah. But like other times it's like, wow, changing this one small thing has this effect of like changing the entire thing. Like, oh, something so subtle that you wouldn't think about. Oh, we changed it because, we didn't think it would work. And it's like, oh, but that was the whole reason the movie worked. I don't have an example right now that I can think of. So I think the thing about CODA was, like, I thought she was in this community, and it makes it even worse that it's like, I am a child who has deaf parents, and I'm the one who is being
I'm the victim here.
I'm the one who has the hard life. It's not my family who has like this huge, like functioning disability, but it's like, I'm the one. Like, that was one of my issues. Okay, so let's get into a couple of questions here. Because I'm all over the place. Does it take away from CODA the fact that it was not started by someone in the deaf community and that it was a remake?
Don't care.
Do you think that's so, like, because I think the reaction from the deaf community was so good, and we kind of talked about this a bit with like you're not a fan of a movie like Crazy Rich Asians because like the Asian American community's like, or I guess the Asian community's like, oh, we're finally being represented, and it's like, yeah, but the movie itself is very by the numbers
crap,
and not
only is it crap, it's also ideologically really perverse. It's very like pro wealth, pro ostentatious wealth. It frames Singapore in a very positive light when the place is actually a dictatorship, built on the backs of like essentially a slave-like underclass that allows the rich there to be so rich. And also the borderline slave underclass are the people who are native to the island of Singapore. All the rich people are Chinese invaders, colonizers basically. So that there's that element of it as well.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
So anything that whitewashes that, so like not only whitewashes it, but like I feel like whitewashing something is you take something bad and kind of wipe it away so it's neutral.
I would say glossy.
What's the version of that where you
glossy? Not
even glossy. Like it's like you go full the other way. It's like, this is good actually. This terrible thing is actually good. I don't know what the term is for that. Like it's like mega white. It's like diamond washing, platinum washing. I don't know. But that's what Crazy Rich Asians is. In addition to being a lousy, formulaic, boring movie,
we'll say it's Disneyfication. Like we'll call it Disneyfication because that would like Song of the South. Hey, slavery wasn't that bad actually.
Yeah,
look, they loved their owner.
It's gone with the windification, where the portrayals of black people in that movie are awfully suspect.
But so like obviously CODA's not like that, but it does like I would say it takes. Does it take advantage? Okay, because
I was gonna say, yeah, CODA at the very least is not immoral.
Okay, so at one point they were gonna try. So Marlee Matlin came on board, which of course, like if whenever there's a deaf actress, like she has to be involved because there aren't a lot of roles and we don't know a lot of deaf actors. Now we do, but then she was very adamant about like, I'm not going to be in this movie unless we have more representation of deaf actors, which again is only adding 2 people. Like it's not like the majority of the cast is, and it's not like they even have a segment where they go into the deaf community in that area. So I like that was my big thing, was like, oh, this movie's being like held up by the deaf community. I think they're very happy that it won, and I'm not going to take that away from anyone. Like the representation is good. It's the same thing with,
I'm
like,
so tired of representation. I think it's so meaningless.
Look, hey, if what's his name, Troy Kotsur is in more movies and like people write around it, like when what's his name, Peter Dinklage, everyone was like, oh, he's so good in Game of Thrones. It's like, Peter Dinklage has been a good actor for years.
He's been good forever.
So it's like, it's nice that he's finally in more stuff. And that's what I mean is like, oh, if the brother is in more stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
I understand that point. Like, if this is a launch pad for Troy Kotsur to get more work, like more mainstream work, like I'm all for that because he's great.
Yeah. Yeah, like with what's his name? Like they always say, like, you don't know what you want until someone gives it to you. We didn't know that we wanted what's his name? The German actor in Inglourious Bastards and played as Blofeld.
Crap.
God, why can't I? Like, this is terrible.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, we didn't know we wanted Christoph Waltz until he like came fully formed in Inglourious Bastards, and it's like, oh, it's a great thing. I mean, to a lesser extent, I don't know if we knew that we wanted Mark Rylance, but now he's in freaking everything.
Now we have him. No, I don't have anything against
going away.
Mark Rylance.
I don't have anything against him either. I just, like, anytime he appears in something, I'm like, it's fucking Mark Rylance. All right. And you know what? To his credit, like, I'm glad someone like Mark Rylance is getting work. I hope Troy Kotsur gets a lot more work after this, you know. Like the guy who Daniel Durant, I hope he gets more work. And they write roles around the fact that they're deaf instead of like making it the main character trait, like, oh, this character is clumsy, this character is stupid, this character is deaf. Like, guys, come on now.
That is a very Hollywood way of writing things, though.
And then you cast someone who's not deaf as the deaf person. It's like,
you cast Mickey Rooney as the deaf person.
Oh my god. I was thinking of Mickey Rourke. You cast Mickey Rourke as the deaf person. But anyway, that was my thing. Like, I personally would rather have a movie about life in the deaf community than a movie where it's someone where it's not even a deaf person living in the deaf family. It's like, I'm the outsider because I can hear everything. Like,
which is such a hilarious, like, flipping of the usual
oppression thing, or
conflict
thing.
Although the thing is like, obviously context, right? The main character's a teenager. Teenagers are selfish bastards, so it makes sense.
And to be fair, she's the lead. She's sometimes comes off as selfish, but other times it's like, well, no, she really is sacrificing for the family because this is Fast and the Furious Deaf Edition with boats.
She's not like Lady Bird or something, where Lady Bird's just like a bitch, and then like
so
learns
she's not
to
Greta
not
Gerwig.
Well, I mean, Lady Bird's whole arc is that she's like a petulant, selfish teenager, and then learns like, oh, you know what? The world is bigger than just me. Maybe I should be nicer to people. This, it's more like, Ruby is like just sacrifices everything for her family and actually learns, hey, like I matter as well. Maybe I should take something for myself once in a while.
Which is also like
which is also kind of weird, but like
this is how it gets Best Picture, because it's all of these things that are like, should we really be talking about it? No, it's okay, guys. It's okay.
To the movie's credit, I think it is something of a healthy egoism and not like just
not
Lady Birdism.
No,
because like
yeah.
you do need to be able to stick up for yourself. Like obviously she's going to be miserable and ultimately self-destruct if she was to be her family's translator for life.
Yeah.
And it's also like it's not totally fair of her parents to put her in that position because their job is to raise her, not use her.
Right.
While they go and her parents act like teenagers all the time as well. So like that creates a weird kind of psychological dynamic.
Yeah. I guess another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I sometimes I just end sentences with So
No, and a lot of the time I cut you off because I'm gonna go in a completely different direction. No, I think I think another issue I have with the movie, and this actually ties back to what you're talking about, is that there are certain. It sometimes feels like there are certain storylines that are kind of put in place and then not developed as much as I would have liked them to be. There's like hints of things here.
Like
so
what?
one example of that is like the conflict she has with her brother. It's kind of bubbling there, and it's never really explicitly said. But then all of a sudden he explodes on her, and it's like, look, we can get by on our own.
He goes full Ben Affleck to her Will Hunting. You need to get out of here. If I ever see you come back again, I'm gonna kick your ass.
If you cut your vocal cords so you can't sing, I'm gonna freaking kill you. It's not a threat. It's just what I'm gonna do. Or like the relationship she had with her little boyfriend. It's like the way that they resolve that is like a little bit anticlimactic for me. Like the fact that I understand where he's coming from, but it's also kind of poorly put where he's like, oh, my family, it's like I'm come from a rich family. I guess is another issue I have with it is like like we hinted on the sort of like entitled, but I still have problems too, and they're still equally as bad. I come from a rich family, but my mom and dad hate each other, and I saw your family so happy. And it's like, yeah, and also that was really funny, and I bet her family would find it hilarious that, like, I bet her parents would find it hilarious that he told someone that they had a talk where they were embarrassing her because they thought that they were having that Ruby and the boy were having sex in their room, while at the same time her parents, who are clearly very horny, were having sex instead.
Oh yeah, so that's an undercurrent throughout the whole movie. Is the parents are very horny.
Well,
and
for
they
the first
have so
half
much
of the
sex
movie.
that they both have like fungal infections. And then because they're deaf, they don't know to be quiet when the kids are home. They don't know when the kids are home, B, to keep it quiet when the kids are home. So they're just like screaming and hollering while Ruby and her little boyfriend, as you say, are over like practicing a song. And then they try to give them the birds and the bees talk and just embarrass Ruby even further, which is all pretty funny.
It is. It was funny. Like, yeah. The other thing about that thing about them talking or like being really loud in the room when Ruby is home is I felt like there were a lot of jokes that if you're in the deaf community, it's like, isn't this funny? This happens to us all the time. Like in the Daredevil director's cut in the blind community, people are always leading people who are blind to chairs, but giving them the outside armrest. So when they go to sit down, they always fall over. And that made it into the Daredevil director's cut because they had like a blind consultant and things like that. So I feel like there's a lot of jokes that the deaf community is like, yep, this happens to us all the time.
I don't know why I thought of this, but I'm thinking of like the blind consultant on the Daredevil set. Whoever directed it goes up to him and is
Mark
like, hey,
Steven Johnson.
Mr. Johnson goes up to the blind consultant. It's like, so, what do you think of this chair? And the blind guy's like, what chair?
The one in front of you. Oh, blind jokes. It's the same thing as like I would have felt better about like all of the jokes that are kind of like stereotypical deaf jokes if it was like it came from the deaf community. But I guess the fact that they had 3 deaf people on there and like other movies that deal with like blind people don't have any blind people on
I mean,
there.
there's The Shape
Make it
of
a bit
Water,
better.
which is literally you got 0 deaf people in it, but is about
Yeah.
a deaf person.
Yeah. So I guess progress.
I guess,
But
yeah.
I guess. Um,
And it's also like, I mean, the Shape of Water weirdly equates like being gay, being black, being deaf, and being a fish man. All is like the same level of like, systemic oppression.
that disability you have, being deaf? Guess what? This person has a disability. It's being black, being gay.
Being a fish man from the Amazon. Like I get what The Shape of Water is trying to do, but that movie's not that good, and its messaging is really
if you think too
not
hard
good
into it,
if you think too hard, yeah.
Yeah, and so I actually, one thing I did like about this movie is, even though I was saying how like I would have liked it if there was more stuff in the deaf community with all the deaf community jokes, where as a viewer you're finally on the inside of that. It also kind of helps to break down, like, a lot of the time you see it and it's like, oh, like we were talking about earlier, oh, in Hollywood, that character's the deaf character, that character's the blind character. And at least here it helps to give them a lot more nuance. It's like, oh yeah, she, Marlee Matlin's character, she was a former beauty queen, is it a stereotype that like deaf people like to are just like super horny? Because like her brother is super horny and her parents are super horny for each other.
The family.
In The Shape of Water, Sally Hawkins' character is like super horny all the time. Like, is this a stereotype we should be? Is this like something? What's her name? The girl who wrote a bunch of books who is blind and deaf.
Helen Keller.
Yeah, Helen Keller. Apparently she was also super horny all the time. Anyway. I found that out. Is this something that like, anyway, we actually covered. Okay, so my last question was, I know I've gone all over the place here, but do you like the idea of a universal story to help eliminate the stigma of something, or would you have preferred a story specifically tailored to a given community? So I kind of danced around this, but like one thing that drew Sean Heder to the story was the fact that it's like a universal story. Most people can put themselves kind of in the position of Ruby, where it's like she's a bit of an outsider, high school's uncomfortable, even like she can't see past the positives of her family, only the negatives, but it puts it in a very specific situation that is not common even to like television stuff, which is again a reason why this is a theatrical movie. It's like, oh, we're not this after school special about the deaf family with one person who could hear. That sounds like a pretty good after school special, but they put it into a movie instead. So like when you have a universal story, you can then apply different metrics in order to sort of like bring to the forefront sort of the different struggles of a community in a more personalized way than you can. I understand if this is a boring question, but I find this one interesting.
This
then
is
you
a
can
boring
if
question to me. I don't care. Just
No.
make it good.
So
I
like
don't care
if
about
this-
representation. I don't care who's behind the camera. I just want the movie to be good.
Okay, but do you think it unlocks an avenue for us to have more like, for example, like Iranian American stories are different than like, Caucasian American stories, for example, for a bad example. But like if they have a story where it's like this but with an Iranian family, or like you didn't see
It's
it,
still gonna suck. You transplant this family with any other marginalized group, it's still gonna suck, and it may even suck more. Because again, the only redeeming qualities of this movie involve the deaf trio of actors
who decide to make a co-op.
Yeah,
There's another storyline that felt a little bit half-baked, but okay.
I mean, it is the definition of a like paint by numbers Hollywood B or C story.
Right.
Those are always super half-baked. They have like 3 beats. That's it.
We're struggling. We're doing it. We're
We
struggling
did it.
while doing it. We've done it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
So this movie,
It's like
is,
it's like you talk about movies that are like a universal story with a specific cast, or a specific story with a specific cast.
yes, that's my question.
I don't think it matters. I think you can do both well. Universal doesn't have to mean generic. Universal doesn't have to mean boring. But oftentimes it does, because people associate universalism with formula, which is not necessarily the case. Something being universal is more about the emotion and the experience than it is about, hey, here is this incredibly precise mathematical formula of a story that we've seen a billion times before, therefore it must be universal. That's not how this works.
Right, you have universal themes with like Star Wars, and then you
Yeah.
have universal situations, which is like, well, what we deem universal, because everyone has been through a scenario like High School Musical.
We've all wanted to
Right.
sing, and our parents wanted us to do their job instead of being basketball playing fishermen.
We've all been so naturally gifted that we don't need any sort of like, our refined voice is like pure gold.
I mean, this is like...
I would say
yeah.
this is well done, though. I wouldn't say it's like terribly done.
It's not terribly done. It's just terrible.
I wouldn't go so far. I would also say that this is very much not your kind of movie.
It's High School Musical. And we haven't even gotten into one of the most important parts of this.
Yes,
Yet.
yeah.
But we
what's-
will.
What's that?
Aesthetics.
Actually, yeah, we should talk about.
But we'll
should
get
talk
into that in a
about
minute.
this.
I
Yes.
would say, to answer your question, the most interesting movie about deafness I've ever seen is probably Sound of Metal, which, in fairness, does not have nearly as many deaf actors front and center as CODA does. But it's a better movie, and it's more interesting, and yeah. If CODA could do something like that, not the exact same story, but, something like that with an actual deaf cast, that would have been nice. I would have liked that. That would have had potential, instead of being, just, oh boy, here comes this thing because I've seen this movie 1,000 times. I know what's going to happen.
Right.
Like, art has to have some aliveness to it, And part of that means being able to surprise you, even in very small ways.
And so this is, I think, like one point where we see this movie differently, because like the beginning of this movie, I wasn't feeling it. But by the end, when like the family got together and like they go to see her do her big audition, which is funny that her boyfriend is just like, I choked. It's like,
And then he vanishes from the movie.
yeah, it's like, well, no, he comes back at the very end. They're like, are we going to be together in Boston? It's like, no, I'm going to go find a viola player with a hat. And I'm like, all right. But like, that moment where she did the thing that she should have probably done, like when they went to see her at her original concert, where she's like singing and signing at the same time. Like, that did get me. I was like, oh, this is like really sweet. They built this up really nicely, and it worked for me. So the movie for me works at the end.
I would say the movie is saved from total mediocrity by two scenes that are back to back. When she has her school performance and sings the duet with her boyfriend, and all the sound washes out, and you sit with her deaf family and experience the show from their perspective, where they don't hear anything and they're just like, oh, what's the big deal? That is a great scene. That is one of two great scenes in the whole movie. And then the other one is the one immediately after, where her dad is trying to figure out, like, okay, what was the big deal? Like, why was everyone reacting like that?
Mm-hmm.
So he asks Ruby to sing the song for him again. This time he puts his hands around her throat and strangles her. No, I'm kidding.
Look, I have a thing about throats, so as he's like feeling her throat around there, I'm like, I think I would have gagged. But yeah. It's actually
he puts
a very
his hands on her
sweet
throat,
scene, yeah.
so he can feel the vibrations of her singing, and try to experience something close to what the concert was that way. Those two scenes are the best scenes in the movie. They are actually really good. And they stand so far above everything else in it. But the other thing is, the deaf experience is central to both of them. The specificity of it, the all of the universal whatever crap, universal in this case just being generic, falls away.
Yeah, the by the numbers part of it, but I would say that because they have those like by the numbers moments, it allows for a couple of moments like this where it's like, oh, okay, you can really understand and get into it. And they have the setup before where he's like, oh, I like gangster rap because I can feel the bass, and it's like he's feeling her vocal cords, so he can feel that through his skin, and it's I that part's good. But it also sets up the part at the end where she's finally realized that, like, even though
sees
she's
both
like, the
sides
world
now.
Yes. it's Hannah Montana, which I have never watched. It's the best of both worlds. She can sing, and she can sign in a rhythmic way.
Wait,
and
are you telling me Hannah Montana ripped off Joni Mitchell? Joni Mitchell, who I have this running thing with my parents where they both really like Joni Mitchell. They're from that generation. They're both boomers. They're both my dad was a hippie, which is weird because he grew up on a farm. But
hey man, let the animals free, or was it like a corn farm?
I mean,
we got to get him to the high corn.
He's a very much a hippie of that time. Grew up on a farm, hunting, fishing, has no problem killing animals, but was also a hippie.
He's like an action movie character who's like, I believe in peace, but also I can execute you in 18 different ways. Anyway.
But so they like Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell, very good songwriter. Her voice, though, is unbearably annoying. I cannot stand to listen to her sing ever at all. It's just it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. So I constantly give my parents shit for liking Joni Mitchell.
I hope every time you visit, they're just like, oh, Gabe's almost here. All right, puts on the Joni Mitchell album for you, just for you. Don't hate what we love, Gabe. That's the path to the dark side.
So yeah, it's just funny when she she's like, oh, I want to sing a Joni Mitchell song. I'm like, oh no, but not really, because again, Joni Mitchell's a good songwriter, so as long as she's not singing it, it's probably fine.
Did you like Emilia Jones's lead performance in the movie?
It was. I don't really. It didn't do anything for me. It wasn't bad, by any means, but it was just sort of there.
She kept I kept thinking she looked like Cara Delevingne, in a weird way. I don't know why. Just why is Cara Delevingne from Paper Towns in this movie? Yeah, I thought she was fine. I kind of wish I had watched the whole movie and then found out that she, in fact, is not from a deaf family. Not that you have to be, right? You're an actor. You take on the role, but
it's called acting, my dear.
It's called, that's, yeah. As what's his name, Olivier once said, shall you try acting now? But I thought she did fine. She apparently studied American Sign Language for 9 months to make sure that it came out as natural as possible, which was pretty nice. Let's talk about some of the production side stuff of it.
Oh yeah, aesthetics.
Yes.
So I saw this in the movie theater.
Oh. Okay.
And never have I ever seen a movie in a theater that is so painfully uncinematic. This looks like a television show.
Wait,
and I
did
mean
you
that
watch-
in the worst way possible.
Did you see? I know I feel like I'm beating it up, but did you see Manchester by the Sea?
Yes.
I hated the cinematography in that movie.
It-
I wanted to hit someone.
At least
so
it
bad.
looks like a movie.
It did not look like a. Okay, it looked like a movie shot by someone who had never shot a movie before. Like, oh my god. Anyway, all right. So yes, this is the cinematography is very generic. I will agree.
It's not just generic because there's movie generic where it still looks like a movie and feels like a movie. This is TV generic where it doesn't even look like a movie.
I mean, I'm not gonna say otherwise. I agree with you. I don't think there's a single scene that I was like, that
It's
I was
just
like,
like
all right, this is taking advantage of the medium. But
Well, it's like movies are. It's like I don't know how to put it. It's like, oh, let's make a painting, but then not like use paint in it. You know what I mean? Like, let's not like we have this medium, this artistic medium. Let's use none of the tools.
no, I know where I understand what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. It feels to me like it was, you know, like Austin says this, and I and you say it. I think sometimes it's like it's very meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
And like I don't really have a problem with that. I think it looked a little bit better on my TV than it probably did in a movie theater where it's like we're not sure how the projector's projecting it, and I get to see it in 4K, but like not 4K projected on a screen.
Allegedly, I mean, it
know?
looks like it was made for TV because it was made for TV. It's made for Apple TV Plus. They apparently didn't think it was gonna go. They weren't thinking of putting it in theaters until it got all this buzz, and then at the last minute, they're like, "Hey, maybe we should put it in theaters and try to get an Oscar campaign on this."
But Apple bought it from Sundance.
What?
Yeah, so it premiered at Sundance, and then Apple bought it because they're
Good grief.
I'm pretty sure. So this was like, yeah, that's, and I think it was shot. Was it shot independently? But that's another reason. Like, it wasn't screened in a big theater. It was screened digitally, like on a computer screen. So that might also be leading to the feeling that it like felt kind of generic.
Oh yeah, it was. Wait. Oh yeah, that's right. Because Sundance was like virtual or whatever last year, right?
Yeah, and then Apple bought distribution rights to the film. So like, because it was again, it's weird. It was picked up and like financed by Pathé, and I was like, really? Pathé? Like, okay. I have a copy of, or I burned a copy of. I actually own a physical copy of Les Samurai, but I got a copy that was like that had the weird Pathé logo that CODA has, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
I'm sure my guess is probably that Pathé was behind the French movie.
And then they do some American distribution as well, and like if they're branching out and they're like, oh, we can make an American adaptation of it for, you know, like,
Well, I think
money.
the American production probably had to buy the rights from Pathé.
Maybe.
So
But
that's
the
why.
other, I know one of the just because I'm looking at it right now, one of the producers on the movie is a producer on the French film and this film. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that there was, yeah. It's really weird. But yeah, I agree with you. It's very, like, it feels production line, but not like movie production line, which you've kind of gotten used to, like closer camera angles, softer focus, more dynamic use of color, more movement occasionally. Yeah, like, although to be fair, Drive My Car didn't have a lot of movement, but it had these expertly composed shots.
Beautifully composed and photographed images. So it's
That's
like,
the
okay, you can
difference.
get away with not moving the camera much.
Yeah. I actually get a lot of flack because, like, I appreciate Knocked Up and, like, the Judd Apatow films when they came out. But, like, if you look back at them and, like, a lot of the sort of, like, mumblecore stuff, all of that stuff was super generically shot, too. And,
Oh, yeah.
super
Like
bland
40-Year-Old
and
Virgin,
very
there's large
TV.
chunks of it that look like it was... They're shot like a sitcom.
Yeah. So like I feel like a lot of people grew up with that as like the way that you make movies. That, and there started to be when Bordwell and Thompson kind of talk about this, there was an over reliance in sort of the mid 2000s of like, let's just have the camera set on, shot reverse shot, and because the actors they don't have to do anything in the, like, the camera is not obstructing from bringing out their true performance. So I wonder if people have like that idea of like, okay, if the cinematography does not infringe on their performance, it's good. But I agree with you that there's nothing particularly special or amazing about the cinematography or the editing, for that matter, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I actually thought the sound design, I thought the sound design was pretty good, because they didn't overdo or like try and, I'm sure they didn't try to like do Foley for when they're doing American Sign Language. They might have, but the fact that it uses silences so well, to me, was one of those things like, okay, this, all of these really bad sound puns. The unsung hero of the movie is like the use of silence, the use of music, when to dial back, all of that stuff I thought was pretty good. Like you said, the point where they actually mute the entire thing when she's singing is like right before she actually gets into the important stuff. And then when she starts signing, it comes back, and like that's kind of covering the stuff that they didn't hear before. But yeah, the editing, very, very by the numbers. Honestly, the only thing that I think is, because like, everyone gets up in arms of like, oh, Forrest Gump won Best Picture. Why did Forrest Gump win Best Picture? It shouldn't have won. And it's kind of tells a story, like it tells a I get like a biopic story, but it's still kind of like a, like a very, I don't know, by the numbers-ish story. But it does it in a very unique way with all of this like crazy technique and things like that. And so like I think the one main thing that this movie had going for it was its insight into a community that's often overlooked, and showing like, hey guys, their community is just like us. And so I think that's what people connected with.
I still don't know why it won Best Picture.
I think people got split between because I think Power of the Dog was like much better. I think more interesting.
A handful of movies were much better.
It was more engaging. Yeah, it's funny because like your favorite movie of the year, like the difference is that this movie covers a lot more generic ground. Right? Because they're both like about like teens, young adults kind of coming into their own and going on sort of like one is about kind of going on adventures to reveal themselves, and the other one is like, I guess they're both about ego, so never mind. I think it was just like, it's similar to how Green Book just won. It was one of those things at the time that people were voting. They just wanted something that was uplifting in sort of a non-controversial way, unless you think about it too hard. And I think that's it. I think that's out of all of the nominees, it was just the feel-good movie. And like, that's one of the reasons Green Book kind of won. It's like, it's the feel-good movie.
What the hell was Green Book up against?
91st Academy Awards. All right, there we go. And I don't need this thing about Edmonds. So let's go to CODA. I'm gonna cut all this out. Maybe I'll put it at the end because it's weird. All right, response from the deaf community. Actually, I should have probably started by reading that. Oh, there's going to be a musical adaptation of CODA.
That's ironic. We need to make sure deaf people can't enjoy this movie.
Let's make them enjoy it even less. All right, here we go. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. We have Best Picture, Green Book, Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh yeah, I'm looking over it. It is a dire list.
Roma, A Star Is Born, Vice. Black Klansman. The Favorite. What do you pick?
Barf. I mean, honestly, out of that list, which is so lacking in anything really that good. I haven't seen Black Klansman, but I've heard it's great. I would almost probably just pick Black Panther, because like that movie was fun. I liked it. The Favorite was like pretty disappointing. Roma,
really?
I couldn't get through. Yeah.
Which one couldn't you get? Oh, yeah, I couldn't get through Roma either.
Roma I couldn't get through because it was too boring. Star is Born looks like crap. Vice is... I've kind of soured on Adam what's-his-face.
Adam McKay. He is Adam not okay.
Adam not okay. No, Adam very okay. Yeah, honestly, like the best animated is stronger than the best... Like the nominees for best animated movie that year are stronger than the best picture nominees. You got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, very, very good. Incredibles 2, very, very good. Isle of Dogs, excellent.
I guess I know what you were hoping won best animated feature.
Yeah.
Ralph Breaks the Internet was real bad.
Best foreign language film. I mean, Cold War was nominated for best foreign language film. That movie's way better than Roma. What else is on here? Oh, First Reformed was nominated for best original screenplay. That movie's fucking amazing. That could have been that if Beale Street Could Talk.
Yeah, that's the one that should have been up there.
Like those should be nominated for best picture, not fucking Green Book or whatever the hell else they had. Roma.
I won't lie though. Like, yeah, I'm glad Mahershala Ali won for Green Book, but like, you know, even though he's come into fire recently because of Power of the Dog, I would have liked Sam Elliott to win. Just, you know, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, Roadhouse was worthwhile. Okay, guys, lay off of Sam Elliott. Which is ironic when he talks about like cowboys aren't gay. It's like, dude, you were in Roadhouse. It's like one of the most homoerotic movies of the 80s. Anyway.
Oh, Sam. How far the mighty have fallen.
I still haven't seen First Reformed. I know I should. I ended up watching the card counter, and the card counter was... Oh my god, the card counter was really good. There was one moment where it was a little bit like... One thing that I was kind of like, that's a little bit anticlimactic, but it was so symbolic that I was like, okay, maybe it's just a symbolism thing. I mean, for... CODA, you had Belfast, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, Power of the Dog, West Side Story. I know which you would have wanted to win, but that's like a pretty... I wonder if it's just like so many people put CODA as like second or third on their list, and there's like, I guess it wins by default because like there's the handful of people who like Belfast, and there's the handful of people who like Drive My Car, and the handful of people who like Licorice Pizza, and the handful of people who like Power of the Dog, and it's just like, but the one thing everyone agreed on is like CODA's pretty good.
God, here's a list of movies that came out in 2018 that weren't even nominated for anything. Like you got Annihilation, which is one of the best movies I've seen ever. Sorry to Bother You, which is fantastic. Hereditary, Mandy. At least they nominated First Reformed, If Beale Street Could Talk. Mission Impossible Fallout was not nominated for anything.
That's a shame. They need
Widows, fucking Widows.
Widows.
Yeah, that Oscar season is usually a disaster, but looking back on 2018, that was a very special disaster.
Here's a question for you. Do you agree with Troy Kotsur winning for Best Supporting Actor for CODA? Here's who he's up against: Kieran Hines for Belfast, Jesse Plemons for the Jesse Plemons for the Power of the Dog. I swear, like if I ever meet Jesse Plemons and he finds out that like I make fun of him a lot on this podcast, I'll be sad because like I like to think I've gone from like making fun of him because I find him annoying to making fun of him because I find him endearing. That's terrible. J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, Cody Smith McPhee for The Power of the Dog.
I mean, I think out of that bunch, Troy Kotzer is pretty deserving. As much as I want Jesse Plemons to win. Because it would be so fucking funny if he did.
He just gets up there and he's still in character. He's like, oh,
well,
I guess I'm
yeah,
glad I
because he
won
just
this
plays
award
himself.
here.
It's his most Jesse Plemons role. Yeah, as much as I would love it if Jesse Plemons won for that, I think Troy Kotzer is, more deserving.
Yeah. That one's a tough one because, like, Kieran Hines is a little bit cliche in his role as, like, the grandfather. Are you ever going to see Belfast?
No.
As spoilers, the grandfather who dies.
Oh, no. It's just like Sean Connery in The Untouchables.
J.K. Simmons is, like, the curmudgeoned man who has a foot stuck in the past but inspires Lucille Ball to take action and being the Ricardos. Like, and then,
Also, like, Sean Connery in The Untouchables. In fact, Troy Kutzer's character is also like Sean Connery in The Untouchables. Yeah, I think I pointed it out in my review of CODA that, like, there is a curmudgeonly father figure archetype that always wins Best Supporting Actor. Whether it's, again, Sean Connery in The Untouchables, Troy Kotzer in CODA, Alan Arkin in Little Miss Sunshine. Like, the Academy loves, like, old dudes playing, like, vulgar father figures.
You mean the Academy made up of a bunch of old dudes who are vulgar but also fathers? Like,
Jesus Christ, Matthew, you've put it together. You've solved the mystery. Holy shit, I didn't even think about that. But yes, you're right. You're 100% right.
I feel like we should just be happy that Jane Campion won for Best Director. Then again, I feel like if what's her name was if Sian Heder was nominated, I bet she would have gotten it. Because it's the movie with all the feels. Like, it's just like when what's his name? Oh my god, Cats director won for the King's Speech. Yeah, Tom Hooper won for the King's Speech, and I was like,
it's bizarre.
Why? Like, if anything, like, sure, the acting was pretty good. Well, okay, the acting was great in the King's Speech, but, like, the rest of the stuff was borderline baffling. Like, camera choices. Why are we going at this angle? Why are you editing it like this? Although they have that one moment where he puts the headphones on so he can hear the music, and then he takes it off and he's like, oh yeah, look and see who can't stutter and talk. And he plays it and he's like, hey, I sound regular. I'm like, all right, that's a nice scene. That's a good scene. I'll take that. But I was all in on The Social Network that year, so.
Yeah, I was all in on True Grit that year.
Oh, yeah, that was another. Oh, my God, True Grit. God,
I don't think I was old enough to get The Social Network just yet.
Yeah. Now do you?
I do.
Yeah.
I get it. God, that movie's so good.
I know. I know that you shit on Mank and you really don't like it, but, like, I actually really like it, and it takes up a lot of space, even though it's been disproven. Like, the whole story of that movie is a fabrication.
Oh my god.
The whole thing about him, like Orson Welles and him fighting has been disproven for years. I still really enjoy that movie.
Well, the thing is with The Social Network, like, when I first saw it, I liked it. Again, I was probably too young to really fully appreciate it, but I liked it. I thought, it was like, oh, this is pretty good. This is interesting. And then I remembered, like, years later in college talking to you, and you're like, yeah, man, The Social Network was, like, way ahead of its time. It was too cutting edge for the Academy. And I'm like, what is this old fuddy-duddy talking about?
What's this old boomer getting his freaking panties or this old freaking dumbass early millennial talking about?
Yeah,
so then the millennial movie.
So then I went back and watched it, and I'm like, holy shit, Matt was right. It was ahead of its time. It was too cutting edge for the Academy. Matt was right all along.
Well, of course, the King's Speech won. It's like the fuddy-duddy movie.
It is.
Like,
it's the boomer picture. It's the
Like, I
picture
guess
for people who call movies pictures.
pictures. Yeah, well, I guess that's the same with like Green Book. Was like it was very much like, you know, tried and true, worn down Hollywood stuff.
Yeah, well,
Whereas like
it's weird because like my parents, boomers, have
yes,
some level of boomer taste. Not fully, but like for example, my dad loves It's a Wonderful Life probably more than anyone reasonably should. But he's of that
your
generation.
dad and I should watch It's a Wonderful Life together because I too love It's a Wonderful Life. But I love it. Quick It's a Wonderful Life thing. I love It's a Wonderful Life because it's so sincere in what it's saying, even though it's like, if you put too much thought into it, it's highly flawed. But also, because of the way it was made, it's super corny. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Like, It's a Wonderful Life, good movie.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Anyway. Their tastes can trend boomerish at times. My mom's taste in movies is a lot more like mine.
But foreign films?
Foreign films, darker stuff, weirder stuff.
Okay.
She's a huge Cronenberg fan, for example.
Gotcha. That's okay.
But neither of them like Green Book. They were like, it's whatever. It's painfully generic.
It's honestly, it's a Saturday morning, or it's an after school special. Like it really is. It's similar to how CODA, you're like, yeah, this is a TV movie. Like Green Book is probably Green Book is the precursor to CODA, which I guess is why I bring it up, because there's nothing amazing about any of the production stuff in Green Book. It's all like the Farrelly brothers, right? They directed Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber 2 and Stuck Together and, you know, all of those comedies. Like,
But
there's
thing
nothing
is
visually arresting about those movies. They're all very by the book, and they just bring that feel to a dramatic movie.
Yeah, but like Dumb and Dumber and There's Something About Mary are like, they're really good. They're hilarious and massively entertaining. I just can't see Green Book being anything other than a slog.
And you'd be right. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's, again, you know, you talk about like you hate biopics where it's like, yes, the life of this person as seen through the life of this inferior character, and that's what it is. Like,
Yep.
it's the story of this great musician as told by a guy who drove him around who was racist and then learned to not be racist. And like
this comes up in every episode now. The lovable racist with a heart of gold. That is one of Hollywood's favorite character stock types.
It's just amazing that it's Viggo Mortensen, and you're like, oh, I thought Viggo Mortensen had like class and standards and stuff, and it's like, I think he just wanted to eat a lot of food. I think that's what it was. Like, he wanted to eat a lot of food and like hang out with what's his name, Mahershala Ali, and like do some funny. He probably thought it was like a comedy. Like, I haven't done a comedy in a while. Maybe I can go and do a comedy. And he goes in and it's like, oh, this is going for an award. Oh God. Oh, I see.
The Farrelly brothers also directed Osmosis Jones.
They directed the live action segments.
Parts. Never mind.
Yeah, they directed. They brought them in to do it because I think the person who was originally doing it got fired.
Osmosis Jones, another very good movie. Kingpin. They directed Kingpin, which is weirdly dark, actually.
Which is not, in fact, about Vincent D'Onofrio's character.
Come on, Amish boy, we have to go bowling.
We are going bowling, and then we are drinking some wine. God, honestly, like, by the way, anyone who's listening, if you're on Instagram, and like the best Instagram account ever is Vincent D'Onofrio's. It's like, it's such an interesting glimpse into how he processes information. It's amazing. Like, I love every time he posts something, I just have to see, because he'll be like Daddy Daughter Day, period, new paragraph, June 18th, 1996, period. a good time, help, new paragraph, good time by all, period. And it's just like a picture of him, like a grainy picture of him with his daughter, like where he's too close in the foreground and like the colors are all off. And it's just like, what the hell is this? Or like he'll post random monologues in support of like actors equity or something. And it's like, what is going on here? Who is using their Instagram like this? But it's amazing.
Vincent D'Onofrio, apparently.
Like, oh my God. He has a book of poetry out. I'm tempted to buy it just because it's just like, his mind must be such an incredibly interesting place to be. I love Vincent D'Onofrio. He's, man. The best thing they did was bringing him back for Criminal Intent. I don't know what they were thinking, bringing Jeff Goldblum in for the whole time. Anyway, now that we've gone way off topic. Anything else you want to cover on CODA that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't think so.
No. I hope this episode was everything everyone wanted it to be. And by everyone I mean Mario. This one's for you. Otherwise, I think we probably wouldn't even talk about it. Like, it's very much not our kind of movie.
No, definitely not.
And it's also and I kind of agree with you. It's also kind of baffling, but like I said, Academy trends, it was the little movie that could. And it did. Do you want to just keep going and talk about Spartan, or should we end the episode?
Let's end the episode.
Okay.
Is it all right with you if we take like a 20-minute break so I can run out and get some lunch?
No, that's fine. I'll just stop. We'll just stop recording and start a new recording.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Gabe. If they want to complain about our hot takes on CODA, where do they go?
They can reach us at video@underthewheels.com. Underthewheels.com is our website.
Music is by Mike, and we're gonna have another episode also set in all these movies set in Massachusetts. Anyway, but until then, I'm Matthew,
and I'm Gabe,
and you have just been Under the Wheels. Let's see what else. Oh, I finally saw The Road Warrior.
Oh.
Yeah.
And?
Like, I don't know how they did. So part of it is like, I guess I really liked it. I feel like if it's one of those movies that I grew up with, it would probably be like one of my top movies.
Yeah.
Because it's just so like, I don't know how they did half of the shit that they did in it. And also the economy of storytelling in that movie is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought the movie was going to be this sprawling, like, 2.5 hour, 2.5 hour thing. No, it's like a tight 90 minutes, maybe 95 minutes. Yeah, it was good. I think I was expecting something like amazingly transcendent, but it felt just like a gritty indie movie.
Yeah,
well, that was doing insane shit.
If you watched it 20 years ago, it would be amazingly transcendent. Mm-hmm. I think because we have Fury Road, that kind of takes the shine off a little.
Maybe. I think it's shining in a different way.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty brilliant in what they basically made Fury Road in the 80s, which is crazy to think about.
I'm gonna get some gasoline.
You want to get out of here? Talk to me.
I'm driving.
Get onto it as much as you want. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
Also, you know what? Like, Fury Road is great, but it didn't have the helicopter. It didn't have the copter dude.
The gyro captain?
Yeah. Like,
was that was sorely lacking in Bruce Spence.
Yes. Which apparently Bruce Spence is back in Beyond Thunderdome. So.
Yep. He's back as a completely different character who also flies a helicopter. I really want him to show up in the Furiosa movie as another completely different character who also flies a helicopter.
Well, especially now, it's even easier to do like gyrocopter stuff than before. I think like that would be like the gyrocopter and the stunts are where I'm like, okay, I don't know how George Miller did this.
I know how George Miller did it.
He just didn't give a fuck, and safety regulations in Australia are really low.
Hell yeah. He's like, we already killed one person making this movie. Who cares?
Wait, did they?
Oh no, that was Thunderdome.
Oh.
What? So you know the is it like what is it? MKM Miller Kennedy
Yeah.
something, their production company that he has with Byron Kennedy.
Yeah.
The third guy, the other M in MKM, died doing location scouting for Thunderdome. It was either a helicopter crash or a gyrocopter crash.
That's right. Yeah, it was a helicopter crash. Yeah, I was reading about that because he was like, George Miller made the movie as a way to like cope with his grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like in the first Mad Max,
Mitchell.
You know,
Yeah,
there's
Mitchell.
that shot where Goose is not the Goose that dies in Top Gun, but the Goose that dies in Mad Max. Is riding his motorcycle and he's going like 150 kilometers an hour or something. Like he's pushing the speedometer all the way to the limit. And
Yeah.
the shot is of the speedometer with the road coming at him super fast. Yeah, they just sat on the motorcycle and did that. So, like they did it for real. So I assume all the gyrocopter shots are the same. They just hopped on and did it for real.
So obviously Bruce Spence isn't in the gyrocopter because like after I was like, oh yeah, they had to like my initial shock of like, wow, this is actually a real thing that's in the air and like running around and stuff. After my initial shock of that, I was like carefully looking to see if Bruce Spence was ever inside that thing, and I was like, okay, he might have been a couple of shots, but for all of the wide shots, they obviously had a guy who knew how to ride it. Because again, that thing couldn't have been cheap to make and like put in the air. So
no, but it's obviously much cheaper than a real helicopter.
well, yeah, but it's also cooler. Like,
well, yeah, because it's that right level of post-apocalyptic jank where like,
yep.
like hey, they have this technology, but it's post-apocalyptic, so it's kind of shit.
Well, not only that, but it's like, man, I wish I had one of those in my backyard in like the Australian outback, so I could just go up in it. I don't think gravity applies to me. That was the thing I was thinking about every time I saw someone in there. I was like, oh yeah, gravity clearly doesn't apply to them in the same way it would for me. But I know that as soon as I get in that, I would just be like 5 feet off the ground and like, nope, can't do it. Afraid of heights.
Just imagine you flying around like terrorizing rural Georgia in a gyrocopter.
Just throwing like water balloons at people.
Hey, have you guys seen Spartan? Throws a water balloon.
God. Oh my God.
Finished.